For 300 years, Easter Island told the world's favorite cautionary tale. A remote civilization that carved 900 giant statues, stripped its own island bare, and destroyed itself. That story is in every textbook and every documentary you've found. But in 2026, researchers stopped debating what went wrong and fed the entire island to an AI. Every satellite scan, every survey, and every measurement of every statue Rapa Nui has ever given up. What came back was something so obvious, sitting in the open the whole time, missed by every archaeologist and every camera crew that has ever pointed a lens at those statues. Rapa Nui is a volcanic island in the southeastern Pacific, 3,700 kilometers off the coast of Chile, closer to nowhere than to anywhere. 63 square miles of grassland and rock, formed by eruptions a million years ago. The soil is basically dead. A million years of rain stripped out everything plants need to grow, and scattered across this island are more than 900 statues carved from volcanic tuff at a single quarry called Rano Raraku. The average moai stands about 4 meters tall. The tallest one ever erected, called Paro, stands 10 meters high and weighs 82 tons. One they never finished is still attached to the quarry rock. They call it El Gigante. 21 meters high and weighing 160 tons, taller than a 6-story building, carved with stone tools by people who had no metal and no wheels. The textbook version of this island goes like this. Polynesian settlers arrived around the 13th century. They carved the moai as ancestor figures, dragged them across the island on wooden sledges and log rollers, and in doing so, cut down every tree. The population exploded past 15,000, the forests vanished, the soil gave out, and the whole society fell apart. By the time the Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen arrived in 1722, the islanders were a shadow of what they had been. In 2005, geographer Jared Diamond published a book called Collapse, and held up Rapa Nui as the ultimate parable of self-destruction. Cut down your trees, ruin your land, and this is where you end up. And for decades, nobody questioned the shape of that story. The treeless landscape, the toppled statues, the small population Roggeveen described. Everything looked like proof of exactly what Diamond said. But Grok kept circling something that every expedition to this island had walked past: the statues themselves, their shape, their direction, their placement. Every researcher who came here brought the same question: what happened to this civilization? Grok found the statues had been answering that question the entire time, and nobody had thought to read them. Over the last 6 years, 5 separate research teams fed different pieces of Rapa Nui to computational systems. Satellite images went through an AI trained to read differences in the soil that human eyes can't see. 11,000 drone photographs got stitched into a 3-dimensional model of the quarry. Spatial modeling software ran every Ahu platform against every known resource on the island. And ancient DNA from 15 Rapa Nui individuals who lived between 1670 and 1950 had their full genome sequenced and run through models that track how populations grow and shrink over time. Every generation of archaeologists measured this island with the tools they had, argued with the generation before, and left behind data nobody ever stacked against everything else. For the first time, every number the island has ever given up sat in one place, in one system, at one moment. All of it went into Grok, the AI built by xAI, trained across archaeology, engineering, genetics, and pattern recognition. The instruction was simple: look at everything and find what the humans kept missing. When you walk up to Easter Island, you look at the statues, because the statues are the whole point. But Grok went straight for the dirt, the soil underneath the rock gardens, and what it found there turned out to be the first thread that unraveled everything.
For decades, researchers estimated that rock gardens, the ancient farming plots where Rapa Nui grew sweet potatoes, covered between 5 and 21 square kilometers of the island. That's a lot of farmland. Enough to feed 17,000 people, enough to collapse an ecosystem. In 2024, Dylan Davis at Columbia University trained an AI on satellite imagery that reads infrared, the kind that picks up soil differences invisible to the human eye. He scanned the entire island. Previous estimates said the rock gardens covered up to 21 square kilometers. The AI found 0.76, less than 1% of the island's surface. When Davis ran the math on how many people the island could actually feed, factoring in sweet potatoes, seafood, and everything else they grew, the ceiling came back at 3,901 people. The working number is closer to 3,000. There was never a population of 15,000. There was never a boom to crash from. The ecocide story leaned on a number that didn't exist. And the AI found it in the dirt before it even looked at a single statue. 3 months after Davis published, a separate team led by Barbara Souza da Mota at the University of Lausanne went looking for the genetic scar of a population collapse. If 15,000 people crashed to 3,000 in a single generation, the DNA would show it. In 2024, they sequenced the full genomes of 15 ancient Rapa Nui individuals. The DNA showed a population that grew steadily across 5 centuries, from the 1200s straight through to European contact in 1722. A small, stable population that held together right up until outsiders arrived. The genetic fingerprint of a crash, the one thing that would prove Diamond right, is missing from every sample. And buried in the same genomes was evidence of contact between the Rapa Nui and indigenous Americans, dating to the 1300s. 400 years before Europeans crossed the Pacific, the Rapa Nui had already made the trip. In 2025, Carl Leipow at Binghamton University and Terry Hunt at the University of Arizona published the most comprehensive analysis of moai transport ever conducted. They catalogued 962 statues. 62 of them sit along ancient roads, abandoned in transit between the quarry and the platforms. And those road statues are shaped differently from the ones that made it to their destinations. Road moai have wider bases, D-shaped from below, and a forward lean between 6 and 15 degrees. They have no eye sockets. The statues that reach the platforms have narrower bases, upright posture, and carved sockets ready for coral eyes. Every one of those shapes is deliberate. The road statues were designed for transport. The forward lean and the wide base turn the moai into an inverted pendulum. Rock it side to side with ropes, and it walks forward on its own center of gravity. The Rapa Nui people always said the statues walked. For 300 years, Western archaeologists called that a myth. Leipow and Hunt built a 4.35-ton replica with the exact road moai proportions. 18 people walked it 100 meters in 40 minutes. They moved multi-ton statues across an island with nothing but rope and 18 people. The transport method that supposedly caused the deforestation never existed. The answer was carved into the statues the whole time. Every abandoned moai on every road was a diagram of how it moved, lying there for anyone who looked at the shape instead of the size. Every tourist photograph of Easter Island makes it look like the statues face the sea. Almost every moai on the island faces inland, toward the communities. In 2019, Robert DiNapoli at the University of Oregon ran mapping software across every known Ahu platform on the island. He tested 3 hypotheses. Maybe the platforms were placed near the best farmland, maybe near the best fishing, or maybe near fresh water. Farmland showed nothing. Neither did fishing. But freshwater seeps, places where fresh groundwater comes up through the rock at the coast when the tide drops, lined up with every single platform on the island. All of them. Even the handful of inland Ahu, the ones that never fit the watching the sea theory, sit on top of inland freshwater sources. The moai mark the one resource this island never had enough of: water.
A population small enough to sustain itself and smart enough to build its infrastructure into its religion so nobody would ever move it. The most practical thing on the island was the thing we spent 300 years calling mysterious. When Grok laid all of it side by side, the soil data, the DNA, the transport physics, the freshwater mapping, one thread ran through everything. Every part of this island that we read as mystical was functional. The statues walked because they were shaped to walk. The platforms sat where they sat because the water was underneath. The quarry ran 30 independent workshops at once, separate communities building for themselves competitively with the resources they had. The population stayed small because the island could only carry so many people, and the Rapa Nui knew it. And then there's the writing. The Rapa Nui left behind 27 wooden tablets covered in more than 15,000 characters across over 400 different glyphs, a system called Rongo Rongo that looks like nothing else on Earth. In 2024, radiocarbon dating placed one tablet's wood at a tree felled between 1493 and 1509, at least 2 centuries before Europeans reached the island. If that date holds, the Rapa Nui invented writing independently. One of only a handful of civilizations in human history to do so: Sumerian, Egyptian, Chinese, Mesoamerican, and possibly the people on this 63-square-mile island in the middle of the Pacific. Nobody alive can read it because every person who could was taken or killed after European contact. Grok can see the patterns in the glyphs and confirm the system has structure, but it cannot tell us what the words actually say, what those tablets were recording, who they were recording it for, and why it mattered enough to carve into wood on an island with almost no trees is the question that stays open. In 1862, a fleet of Peruvian slave ships landed on Rapa Nui and took roughly 1,500 people, nearly half the island. Among them were the last people who could read Rongo Rongo. Smallpox followed, and by the 1870s, 110 Rapa Nui were left alive. That is the collapse. And the statues were standing through all of it. The statues fell because European visitors toppled them. The culture that maintained them was dismantled from the outside. The people who built these statues were Polynesian navigators who crossed 3,700 kilometers of open ocean, landed on a volcanic rock with almost nothing on it, figured out how to grow food in dead soil, mapped their freshwater into stone monuments, invented a writing system from scratch, and kept their population inside the limits of what the island could carry for 5 centuries. And we turned them into a warning about greed. The statues are still facing the right direction, still standing over the water, still shaped to walk. Every answer was in plain sight. It took a machine to finally read what 900 statues had been saying the entire time. Easter Island isn't the only site where Grok is finding this exact pattern, a civilization we underestimated hiding its answers in the open. The pyramids were the same story, a structure everyone thought they understood, but the layout inside stopped making sense the moment the AI analyzed it. That video is right here. Go watch it now.